All around us, there are many different types of interactions occurring between many different organisms. We can observe a number of these different interactions in the day-to-day life of just one species. For example, the New Holland Honeyeater. Most members of the Honeyeater family are omnivores, which derive their energy from pollen, nectar, and small insects. To be nectivorous means they feed on the nectar and pollen produced by flowering plants. In this photo, you can see pollen on the face of this little wattlebird. Unlike us humans, honeyeaters like this New Holland honeyeater don't have to pay $300 a bag for their favourite powders, because they grow on trees. Here, we see our first example of an interaction between species, herbivory. Herbivory is when an animal eats part of or all of a plant. Normally, herbivory is only considered beneficial to the animal and detrimental to the plant. However, this interaction is a little more complicated. Honeyeaters eat nectar from flowering plants, and this side of the interaction is technically considered herbivory. However, when the honeyeaters feed from one flower, they pick up pollen and carry it to the other flowers of another plant, helping the plants reproduce. This is known as pollination, which is a mutualistic interaction. Mutualism is positive for both parties, a two-way street. Both organisms benefit from the interaction and neither is harmed. Unlike competition, which is like a two-way street with one lane, where everyone keeps crashing into each other. Speaking of competitors, here comes one of the pricks now. This is a red wattlebird. Technically, just another species of honeyeater. Similarly, this is a smaller, less striking species of wattlebird, the little wattlebird. While they are both actually just more species of honeyeater, they are the sworn enemies of the New Holland honeyeater and each other. These three are constantly fighting over the best sources of nectar, and, as a result, the small New Holland honeyeaters have adapted to living in denser bushes and shrubs to escape the larger species of honeyeaters. As mentioned before, this is called competition, when two or more species are forced to compete over the one resource. Competition generally has a negative effect on all species involved. This is because all individuals involved in competition will either have to fight over the resource or chase each other away from the resource, which is a potentially unnecessary expenditure of energy. Going back to this marvelous photo of our pollen-addicted friend, we can see that not only is there pollen above its beak, but the wings of insects can be seen protruding from the edges of its beak. Being omnivores means New Holland honeyeaters don't just eat nectar, but they also feed on insects. You can easily observe this in the late afternoon when small flying insects are most active. New Holland honeyeaters will often sit on a high exposed branch or a power line and fly a short distance up into the air, catch a bug, then immediately return to their perch, doing this over and over again to catch multiple bugs. Now, this may not be the first thing that comes to mind when you hear the term predator, but by definition this is a clear example of carnivorous predation. Going with what we already know, and what seems quite obvious, predation is only beneficial for one of the organisms involved, and detrimental for the other. With that, we've now observed not one, not two, but three different interactions between New Holland honeyeaters and their surroundings. To summarise, those interactions were mutualistic pollination, which is beneficial to both the honeyeater and the plant, competition with other species of honeyeater, which is detrimental to everyone involved, and predating on flying insects, which benefits the honeyeater and negatively affects the insects.